cache, something I've done before. And it's like a whole series of presentations we did on some of the myths of the modern world. So we all know, when we speak about myths, we generally have this idea that the ancient world is full of myths. People believe all kinds of things, like the earth is flat, and the moon is made of cheese, and whatnot. But we also have our myths, actually, in the modern world. Many things that are in the modern world, things that we believe, certain misconceptions, one can say, things that aren't actually really true. Many things. So we spoke about quite a few things we're taking a look at. It's not that the modern world is some kind of a perfect place, far from it. Many things that we do are not really very intelligent, and or necessarily exactly as it is presented. So the topic that we're looking at tonight is this idea of what is natural, naturalness. For most of us, and actually I did this presentation, I was living in South Africa, and then even there I had a little slide of New York City in there. Little did I know that one day I would walk these streets and inhabit one of these buildings. For all of us in the modern world, as society has become increasingly urbanized, most of us living in urban environments, I think about more than 60% of the world's population is now living in cities, urban environments. And we speak about overpopulation, and we speak about the crisis of space, but actually there's like massive tracts of land that are just empty. Places like India, people are just flocking from the villages and living more and more in cities, highly congested, not enough space, housing issues. But it's because everybody's running to the cities, because basically rural life is collapsing to a large part. The standard of life in rural areas is going down and down because it all becomes expensive. Now, for most of us, we find ourselves living in cities, and we have a little bit of a hankering, this idea of what is natural. Everybody's is like clamoring for a more natural life. We can feel that, it's a little bit unnatural. Some of the ways we live and work, and traveling so far, working so many hours, and living within a concrete jungle, as they say. We can feel that many of us, I'm sure all of us, trying sometimes a little bit to be a little bit more natural, isn't it? Like sometimes you take your shoes off and you walk in the grass, or you eat some fruit or something, at least something to just sort of be a little bit more natural, isn't it? But naturalness has actually become quite a nice brand if you want to sell stuff, isn't it? And so advertisers have really caught on. And nowadays, if you advertise something as natural, then you can add a few dollars to the price, because then people will be paying to pay more. And it's amazing if you see how many things are now marketed as natural, isn't it? Natural pencil, natural toothpaste, natural shoes, natural clothes, natural hair dye, natural whatever it is, any kind of thing you can imagine. We slap the label natural on it because advertisers, the people who know people best is advertisers. They really know what's happening in people's minds and in their hearts and in their desires. And natural medicine, one of the biggest growing industries in the world now. All kinds of people are looking for natural alternatives, even the most basic things, and we're trying to move away from what is artificial, isn't it? So natural medicine, here we see a whole bunch of advertisements for all kinds of natural treatments for usual ails. I have a friend who's really into barefoot running, like a whole movement of people that are saying, actually, shoes is very bad for us. We thought the most coolest things you can do is rock out with your Air Force Ones, a nice thick sole, but actually, if you do a lot of research, it's very bad to your feet, because it's super unnatural, specifically when the heel is so high and your front foot is so low, it had all kinds of impacts on your legs. And we see that even a lot of many long-distance Olympic athletes, they run barefoot, because you actually, at a certain point, if you train like that, you have much more endurance and your feet become much stronger. So we're sort of having this shift. We're realizing, so many of the things we do, does it really make sense? So natural shoes. What about a natural diet? And so the theme, what I'm trying to present to you is this understanding of how this idea of what is natural is being presented to us, and then it's meant to support that this thing is good because it's natural, and this thing is bad because it's not natural. So in the field of diet, for example, if you go to your local Barnes and Nobles, you go to your diet section, you will find a whole host of books that are all trying to explain to you what is the natural human diet. They have all their arguments based on, we evolved to eat this and this. And here you have the paleo diet. Paleo obviously referring to the prehistoric human diet. This is what humans are, this is the real thing that we have to eat. And a few years ago in South Africa, there's this book that came out called The Real Meal Revolution, where there was this professor, Tim Noakes, who was not a professor in nutrition, but a professor in sports science. But he came out with this book, and he was saying that carbohydrates are unnatural. We're not really supposed to eat carbohydrates. We're only supposed to eat fat. And then his diet is called Banting, the Banting diet. And basically in the Banting diet, you just eat fat, bacon, butter. Like even I have one friend who was in the Banting diet, and he would, for breakfast, he would just drink like melted butter. It's like so half a cup of melted butter, boom, and then because and there's a whole argument behind it. And the argument behind it was what? Is that this is natural. We're actually not supposed to eat carbohydrates because carbohydrates was only introduced a few thousand years ago into the human diet. And really we're just supposed to eat fats and bacon and all kinds of things. So problem, because some people have obviously adopted this diet and then suspiciously died from heart disease. But Professor Noakes assures us that it's not due to the Banting diet, but it is due to previously eating too much carbs that has caused some insulin problem for people. So, but then the interesting thing is that on the other side, you will have someone else who will use the same argument to argue for a completely different diet. And here we have the raw vegan movement, which is basically saying, no, we're supposed to just eat raw fruit and vegetables. But they're using the same argument, saying that this is the natural human diet. So it becomes a little confusing, isn't it? When you want to be natural, you realize that it's not so simple to know what is the natural way to live, what is the real thing, because both these camps are basically saying, using the same argument, but the diet is very different. It's very different to eat raw asparagus sprouts for breakfast and drinking a cup of butter with your bacon, but both of them coming from the same angle. So, but it also doesn't just end with diet. Then the same argument of what is natural also goes into the realm of human relationships. Here we have a wonderful book called The Ethical Slut, which is all dealing with the practice of polyamorous relationships. And the same argument is what? Is that this is natural. The natural, if you would go back to prehistoric human society, there was no such thing as marriage or fidelity to people. People were just like animals. We're just mating in the tribe, basically. And the whole argument is made for how this is an much more natural condition of life, and that so many of the problems we have now psychologically, isn't it? How much of our problems come from relationships? So many problems come from relationships. But maybe the solution is just that there should just be no relationships. There shouldn't be these things, because if you just go back to how we were when we were animals, then it will solve the problem. Very interesting. And also goes even a step further. You can take it even a step further on the political realm. Anarcho-primitivism, a movement that's basically saying, forget just about marriage, all human institutions are unnatural. The government, anything, any form of thing we created, it should all be destroyed. We should just go back to becoming hunter and gatherers. Then all the solutions will be solved. And there's people that take this seriously to a certain extent. Even some people will engage in acts of terrorism, blowing things up, out of the sense of that's the solution to humanity's problems. Is we should just destroy it all. Destroy all human civilization, because it's all evil. So, interesting, isn't it? But all coming from the same argument, which is basically the question, what does it mean to be natural? How can we be natural? And in the name of being natural, people are letting go of certain kind of practices or principles that have guided society for many thousands of years. Okay, so that was just a little sort of a picture on seeing how a very simple idea, something that we all encounter every day, the implications of these things. You see the implications of these ideas. And if you think about in your life, how much depends on what you think is a natural way to live. How much depends on that? and how you make your relationship decisions, how you make your diet decisions, how you make your lifestyle decisions, all comes back. What do you think is the right way to live? And that is very confusing, really, in the modern world. Now, having looked at this, I want to take us a little back to something a little more basic. What nature also is. When these arguments are coming, and people are saying we should go back to a more primitive way of life, thinking that the solution is to again sort of become like animals to a certain extent. Many of these arguments go like that. I want us to take a little look, just a reminder about how it really is like in the natural kingdom, how the natural world actually really works, if we think about it for a moment. Okay, hope the sound is going to work. If you Google brutal nature YouTube, and I sort of just edited it a little bit because some of it is like really brutal, like amazing how cruel nature can be. So from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we get an interesting verse that explains us a little bit what is really happening in this natural world, this world that is sometimes misunderstood. Hastani sahastanam, apadani chatushpadam, palguni tatra mahatam, jiva jivasya jivanam. Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are the subsistence of the strong, and the general rule hold that one living being is food for another. So when we speak about the natural world, we should not be too romantic about it. Understanding that the natural world, what we've seen there, that's how nature works. It is a world in which one living being eats another to survive. And much of human history and much of human culture is actually designed to try to protect the weak from the strong. Most of our social institutions, all these things, it's built to try to protect one being from trying to eat another. And that is really, and because that's the natural course of life. That's how it works in the natural kingdom, when one living being eats another. So the natural argument is something that one has to be very careful about, because we see on the one hand, yes, we do have a desire to be more natural, but on the other hand, we cannot deny that there are certain impulses within us that have to be directed or fought against sometimes, because otherwise society can become extremely brutal. All these things that happen in animal society, murder, rape, theft, these things that's how the natural world works. In human society, it's criminalized. We try to protect it. We try to create situations in which people are protected. And all of us can agree that whenever we see the weak exploited by the strong, that it hurts us when we see it. Even when we look at nature, we see like it's so brutal. But humans, at least, we see that in our society, we try to adjust it or change it. Now, I want to show another little clip, a very interesting movie. I don't know who has watched it. It's called The Road. Ever watch it? Came out in 2009. The Road. It's interesting. We all have very much progress, dark taste in movies as I do. So this is based on a book by Cormac McLachlan, who won a Pulitzer Prize for this book. And basically, the premise of the book is very simple. It deals with some kind of a natural disaster has happened in human society. They don't say exactly what it is, but like probably a meteor or something has hit the earth, and human society has just collapsed. Like electricity is gone, everything is just collapsed, and there's a few human survivors. And also what has happened is that there's some kind of a dust cloud which will happen if a meteor hits the earth, which is what they predict what happened when the dinosaurs went extinct, is that the meteor hit and it created so much dust that it covered the sun, and then plant life and everything started to die because the sun couldn't really get to the earth. So slowly in this movie what happened is that something happened and plants just started to die. What can you eat? There's no electricity, there's nothing happening. Infrastructure, government, everything is gone. And then people continued to eat, and what did they eat? They ate all the animals. And at a certain point, there's just nothing left to eat. And what are you going to eat? Then very soon, at a certain point, it became clear, if you want to survive, you're going to have to eat one another. And people started, and basically the whole world was just roamed by people that are either trying to run away or people that are coming together in groups and trying to hunt one another. And it's very hectic. When you watch it, it's very interesting because if you ever heard of the Vedic idea, it's the idea that there's these yugas, and even at the end, in Kali Yuga, there's this general degradation in human society, and that's where it goes. If the natural world, there's nothing left to eat, what's going to happen? If there's no rain, there's no sun, there's no plants, that's where it goes. So it's under these conditions where both the worst of human society can come out and also the best. So the book details this a father and son who's traveling. They're trying to travel to the coast through North America, and because they have this idea that perhaps on the coast there's some idea that maybe there's some life or some ability to grow something, some ability to at least create a more realistic life. And in the course of the movie, they're trying to dodge basically all these cannibals, these people that are cruising around and just capturing one another. Extremely scary movie, actually way scarier than any kind of horror or sci-fi thing you can watch. Because when you look at it, you understand that the thing is, this probably will be real. Like, if there is nothing left to eat, this is really how it will go, become extremely hectic. But this father and son is very interesting because they basically are, in the movie it says to his son, we are the good guys. Because they're basically not willing to descend into cannibalism. They're not willing to go to this point of killing other people and eating them. They scavenge on trying to look for the certain supplies of whatever they can find in whatever is left of society. And he has this phrase, this interesting phrase, where he tells his son that we carry the fire. We carry the fire. The interesting phrase, meaning that the fire of what is good. This idea that that human society, there's some ability we can rise above, just descending into an area that we just exploit and kill one another. So at the end of the movie, his father, when they reach the coast, his father dies, and the kid is there, and then he doesn't know really what to do. And then another man walks up to him. I can imagine just in that state of human society, how can you trust anyone? Who can you trust in a position like that? No one. You can't trust anyone. So I like to just look at this to, I'm going to make a certain point. So let's look at this short little clip to get you an idea of the end of the movie, which is the best part because it's sort of a happy end to otherwise very grim movie.
Manual. Your father?
He's my papa.
Maybe you should come with me.
You're one of the good guys?
I'm one of the good guys. Why don't you put that pistol away?
I'm not supposed to let anyone take it from me, no matter what.
I don't want your pistol, I just don't want you pointing it at me. See, you got two choices here. You can stay here with your papa, or you can go with me. If you stay here, you need to keep off the road.
I don't know you're one of the good guys.
You don't, you just have to take a shot.
You have any kids?
Yes, we do.
Do you have a little boy?
I have a little boy and a little girl.
How old is he?
That's your age. Older.
You did anything? So, you don't eat people?
No, we don't eat people.
And are you carrying the fire?
You know what?
Carrying the fire.
You're kind of weirded out, aren't you, kid?
Well, are you?
Yeah, I'm carrying fire.
I can come with you.
Yes, you can.
I'll talk to you whether
glad to see you. You were following me, did you know that? But we saw you with your mom. I'm so lucky. I'm so worried about you. Yeah, we don't have to worry about them. Does that sound? Is that okay?
So, what we see on this clip, what I really love about it, is it shows us two things. It shows us about something else also natural about humanity, isn't it? It is natural to want to care for one another. Isn't it? It's such a natural impulse in all of us to want to care for one another, to see one another happy, to try to protect those who need to be protected. But the point is that it's not necessarily easy, and it doesn't necessarily come without a fight. You see? The principle that the kid was saying, do you carry the fire? It means, do you carry that fire to try to take care of one another? Do you carry that fire? Because you need a fire if you really want to be able to protect one another, if you really don't want to exploit other people, if you really want to do that, which is natural for us. The problem is that it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost. You have to a certain extent, conquer over yourself, and you have to a certain extent, give up your own self. So the point is that what is natural, if it is natural for us to love and to serve and to protect, it doesn't mean it will come without a fight. And that's really what the Bhagavad Gita, or Krishna's message is, points out to us. It says that it speaks of what is natural, the natural nature of the soul. But in this moment, the soul is in a world that is limited, it's encapsulated in a material body. And there are these opposing forces that are pushing within us. So we all experience it within ourselves. Whenever we enter into a relationship, we can really experience it. When you get kids, when you get married, when you do so many things, if you become a boss at work and you have all these people that have to listen to you, there's always a sense that you have to be careful. And the question is, can you protect people from yourself? Can you do that? Can you protect people from yourself? From our own anarthas, which is called in Sanskrit, means the own things that we see in our heart that can sometimes make us hurt others. So spiritual life really is about being natural. It's about cultivating that natural impulse, ultimately that natural spiritual impulse we have to take care and to protect and to serve. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it comes without a fight. And that's really the core message that we have to understand. When we look here at the nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Shatmati Heva Ya Shotam Praksharira Vimokshanat Kama Krodotpavam Vegam Sayukta Sasuki Naraha. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, then he is well situated and is happy in this world. So, when we start thinking about being natural and what is happening now, the general current of explanations and ideas that are trending out there, that there's this conflation between thinking that what is good is supposed to be easy, what is natural, but not understanding that even our natural spiritual impulses require, as we say here, an ability to tolerate and to check the forces of our own desires. And that really is what a big part of spiritual life is about, is to cultivate elevating qualities, cultivate spiritual qualities. So these transcendental qualities, Krishna explains that there are different kinds of qualities, transcendental qualities and demoniac qualities, or asuri qualities. And all of us, we have both of them within us. We all know for ourselves, isn't it? If you would sit now and write on a paper, you have seen that you have these two sides in your own nature, and that the cultivation of transcendental qualities, this is really what human life is about, and that it sometimes requires a little bit of a push, a practice. But we have to know that for those who are engaged in cultivating these auspicious qualities, We meet neither with destruction in this world nor in the next. So for those who do good, for those who carry the fire, for those who carry that fire, who are committed to transcending their own base qualities and cultivating these higher qualities, Krishna says here, they are never overcome by evil, even though they can incur great challenges in this world. So that was an interesting meditation on what is natural, and thinking for ourselves, at least becoming aware that many of the things that we do appreciate, and many of the good things that we love in life are things that are worth fighting for, and that it ultimately starts with our own life, starts with our own practice. And meditation is really also the root of many of the cultivation of these qualities. Meditation is the basic form in which we try to choose and try to have the ability to say, no, now I will direct my attention to that which is liberating, that which cultivates good qualities, instead of allowing myself to just be taken away by the current of anger, irritation, so many of these things that can take us at the moment. How easy is it to be carried away by anger? Very easy. It's not complicated, it's not difficult, anyone can do it. But how easy is it to go the other how difficult is it to go the other direction? To learn how to restrain ourselves for a higher cause, for the development of higher qualities. So this then is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us. There are these two natures, and we have to be careful to see which one cultivates. But as one progresses in spiritual life, and as one really develops these good qualities, then one can reach a stage where one, what is called purified naturalness. When as one's nature becomes purified, then it becomes easy and natural to always act on these higher qualities. And that is really what we see in saintly people. That's why all human history is of saintly people. People that have really conquered over their own natures, and that show that the transcendental path, the cultivation of higher qualities, really leads to a wonderful state of existence in which it is able for us to express the natural qualities of the soul. Okay, so that was my meditation for the evening. I'm going to skip this. So I'm going to give a few moments. What we can do is if there's any questions, you can ask a question, or if there's any reflections, maybe something that was said or something that you will take away from this presentation, something that you are thinking about, you'll be taking away, that you find very interesting. Because always, all of us, we have different things that we hear. So I'll give you a few moments, you can just think about it, and we can share a little bit. Yes, Manoj.
I had some thoughts about this darker side of nature, brutal nature. It seems like they're trying to convince us that nature is not good,
Yeah.
And I put a comment one time, why don't they show the slaughterhouses and what the humans are doing?
Yeah.
Which is, the animals are nice,
Yeah.
They only take what they eat.
Yeah.
They don't just go hunting and shoot animals for the skin or for the fun, or, just for money.
Yeah.
Humans are much worse.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, if you put natural, they said it's the best trick they've ever come up with in advertising.
Yeah.
Just put natural and the same item will sell much more.
Yeah.
But, they're trying to convince the people, and the young people are seeing this over and over again. Nature's bad, cities are good. It's a horrible thing going on. And so what to do?
Yes, Harpreet.
I think the point you brought about anger, usually, anger is something that's very easy to, come out as an expression.
Yeah.
So I think, that was, when you said there are, two modes, with, anger and not that mode.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'll definitely take away from.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Going back to the natural and the advertising,
Yes.
honestly, I didn't realize how much it affected and how much of a scheme it is, because I myself work for a very well-known brand that just turned everything to clean, vegan, and natural. And I didn't even realize what I was doing until right now that you're showing that, it's not, I guess for these bigger companies, it's not more about they care about nature, it's just what people are gonna get.
That's what
what's
sells.
strong.
Yeah. And people are willing to pay for it also much more, some or other. And but some of them are really, some of them are really better products. So I'm not saying don't distrust anything. Sometimes things that are labeled natural are probably better, but some intelligence is required because sometimes you'll take pick some toothpaste and it says natural, and you look at the ingredients and you look at good old Colgate, and it's basically the same thing. This one just has some peppermint oil in it or something. So yeah, some intelligence. Thank you very much for seeing it from the other side. Yes, sir.
I was also thinking how right now in the world that we live in, there's so many things that are trying to be pushed as natural or normal.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to what's happening right now with like, I don't know, with like Facebook and Instagram where the metaverse and like virtual reality doesn't seem like something natural or normal at all. But the way the world is trying to push that, it's like, especially they're targeting kids first, and now I feel like it's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger, where people are gonna think it's normal for us just to put these things on us and live this virtual reality when it's not something normal or natural. And it's like, how do we push ourselves away from that when it's just being so persistent right now, with what's happening?
Yeah, very nice reflection. Definitely, the virtual reality will continue to grow. And we all have to decide how we're gonna, you can't avoid it completely, but how you're gonna integrate with it. Very interesting, thanks. Any other reflections? Yes, ma'am.
With like how you said at the beginning, our attention is being pulled like all these different places. I guess what I gathered is like the best way for us to find our natural state is like through meditation. And I actually had a thought the other day when I was showering. I went to check my phone, and I was like, why can't I take a shower like without checking my phone? Like these states of like I feel like before people had natural meditation, like not intentionally sitting down to meditate, but because you didn't have a distraction and like a car ride or like a train ride, you naturally were just meditating. But now you have to really like put forth all of this energy to meditate, which is just like crazy.
Good point. Same as exercise. Like, 100 years ago, there was no gyms, because people weren't sitting down for 16 hours a day. But now you have to, if you're careful, you can sit for a whole week. And you just basically, especially when you're working from home, you basically walk to the fridge. You're just basically walking to the fridge and back to your computer. So now you have to make a plan to do some movement. So good point that, yes, meditation I once lived, just after school I went and I stayed in a farm in Zambia. I'm from Africa originally, South Africa, so it's just like 3 countries up. So I just lived there and there was no electricity. And people basically lived on what they grew. And it was amazing. Like the first few days, you're like, your mind is buzzing because you're like, there's no stimulation. But then you start to calm down. And then what happens is, first amazing thing that happens is your sleep is completely different. Because the moment that sun sets, it's like you're ready for bed. Because there's no lights. There's no phones, nothing. So, after a few days, your body picks up a natural rhythm again. Which is actually really, that's when you start speaking on a natural kind of rhythm. You're working with the sun. But nowadays it's all lights, all this light shining on eyes. So the point is that what you're saying, I really appreciate, is that we need to, in one sense, counterbalance that. So to understand that the more we live in an artificial environment, we have to make a plan to make these things. In meditation, exactly that. Now, if you don't practice not to be distracted, it won't happen. And I have one friend, she was driving, and then she realized that every single time she was driving in the city, every single time she stops at a stop street, she would check her phone. And she realized, and then it sort of hit her, what is happening? I drive like once and I just check the whole time. So how addictive these things are also. So meditation is great because meditation is the exact opposite of that. All technology is made to take your attention, to grab it and to pull it. Like YouTube is designed, because you have that little feed that has all the suggested videos, and they have an algorithm where they can like pick up what are the things that will most likely interest you, and they pick it up and they package to you there. So because it's designed, the whole point of YouTube, it's designed to have you spend as much time on there as possible. It's designed for that. because that's how you make money from advertising. So all these social media apps, Instagram, it's all designed. They design it. They have people who have, all these Ivy League graduates. They sit there and they think up ways. How can we get people to spend more time here? And they catch you and they pull you in. So meditation is the exact opposite of that. So you should say, no, now I'm going to decide what I direct my attention to. And I'm going to put away all distractions and I'm going to direct it to what I know is true and good and beautiful. So this mantra meditation is really this element where you push back against that influence. And even though it's natural, but it takes a little bit of a fight. So thank you, very nice reflection that we have to counterbalance that. Anthony.
Thank you for the lesson. I enjoyed it very much. And, it's very beautiful. A lot of people talk about natural this, natural that, right? But then what is natural, and I was very focused in this presentation, but I think I missed the point to what is natural, there's good and bad, but what is natural?
So we'd say natural, there are two kinds of our nature. There's two kinds of natures within us. One nature that is rooted within this world, a nature that is part of material reality, and then we have the soul has its own nature. And that to develop the qualities of the soul is also natural, it is also in there with us, but it requires sometimes that we have to properly control our lower drives and our lower nature. So, and that sometimes might look like meditation, might look a little artificial, or it might feel like effort. But even to develop higher qualities, to develop the natural qualities of the soul that is within us, it might take some work. And that's the whole point. Whereas if you just go for your lower qualities, if you go for the impulses that are just coming with this body, with this material body that you get, that requires no practice. It's very easy, you can just go for it. Anger, greed, lust, you don't need to practice it. It just goes. So there's these two natures that can sometimes be opposite one another. And the real trick for us is to put the cultivation of the spiritual nature as our higher priority and to regulate our bodily drives in accordance. Just like eating, so many things, all fine. It has to happen within a supportive aspect, to support our spiritual qualities. That is then sort of the summary of what we have here. Okay, I think we can end here because now is the next step of our program, which is a very natural part of the evening, because we're going to eat something that's being prepared. So our monks have been cooking in the kitchen, so we'll see what they cooked up for us. So we thank you all for coming.
Kirtan.
We do some kirtan again?
Yeah.
A second kirtan, okay, well, we're going to do some second kirtan for a few minutes while
Yeah,
they get
but I love the dancing.
Standing up.
Okay, that's the system. I haven't been here in a while then. Okay, so while they get things ready, we'll do some kirtan. And if you have not signed up for our WhatsApp groups, if you want to keep a little up to date with what's happening here, you can please come see me, and then we can add to the group so you can get the info about what's happening.